Hello, 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 everybody. Tonight we're going to talk about the Christ, the actual word the Christ being this is the strong delusion and the churches. And people will not believe this and they have the hardest time when I tell them this, but it's the truth and it's what's in the text. If we don't add and juggle the text to make it say something else, it's exactly what Jesus is telling us about. So that's why I titled it "The Christ is the Strong Delusion," because that word is the strong delusion, and there was two Jesuses. I wanted to give a shout out. I don't know if 990 is on anymore, but this lady helped me see some things, and we discussed the like Yahweh being the evil one in the Old Testament, and she was kind to me and talked to me before I even understood about all of this. And I was not ready to receive that message at the time. And so, but it went in the seed was planted. And later on, when Father felt like I was ready, I think he revealed the rest of the stuff to me. And I remembered what we conversed about and talked about. I went back and tried to talk to her. And she's been MIA for 2 years off of YouTube. Her channel's still up, but Clay and I did a search and we cannot find her. Wanted to email her or get in contact with her somehow and talk to her now that I have this other knowledge. But this is one of her videos that inspired me tonight. I noticed this one and I haven't ever seen it and I don't know how I missed it. But it's called "The Churches Are the Strong Delusion, 100% Bible Proof." And she did this 7 years ago. So there were other people out there seeing this message that I'm talking about long before I did, you know. She saw that we weren't supposed to, the connection she makes in this one is that we weren't supposed to call him the Christ. And that's the first time, and she also makes the connection that it was Peter that was the one that was going to mess things up. And I didn't make that connection either. But when I went back and read that chapter again and looked at it in context and all, I'm like, I'll be darned. That whole chapter, if I would have just sat there and read it all the way through, I would have seen so much more than what I did, you know. And I try to be careful because y'all know I focus on each verse. I try to be careful not to like hyper focus where I can't see the whole context. And I'll go back and I'll even take my little sentences and I'll put them together that I come up with from analyzing and see what it reads as a complete whole. You know, does it work? Is it too weird? You know. Yeah, I think so, Tracy. I think we get revealed at the right time when we're ready for it. You know. But I just wanted to give a shout out for her channel. She may not be there anymore, but there's still lots of good content on it. And I wanted to give her credit for helping me see this tonight because I had missed this video for some reason, and when I saw it I was like, oh my gosh, it's right there, it was right in front of our face. So I thought I'd share it with y'all because this is a good way we learn from each other, you know, by how I caught it. You know, you might catch something else somewhere else and share it with me, you know. What we're looking at, Christianity is the world's largest religion. There are over 45,000 different denominations now. That's as of August 16th, 2024. Isn't that unreal? There's that many. I'm like, 45,000. I it just, it amazes me. And part of the problem is people don't listen to Jesus, and we're going to talk about that. Christians say that they listen to Jesus, but they really don't. It's like, if they did listen to him, they would not be using the Christ word. That's for sure. That would be number one. Because when you read in Matthew 16:20, then he strictly forbade them to tell, not to tell any, he strictly forbade them to tell any man that he was Jesus the Christ. He didn't want them to tell anybody that. And it's confirmed in the other two main gospels too. It's like Mark 8:29. And he said to them, and you, whom do you say me to be? And Peter answered him, saying, you are the Christ. And he rebuked them, that to no one they should tell concerning him. He didn't want that told. And everybody's like, well, yeah, but Peter's the one. I'm going to show you that too. Then in Luke 9:20 and 21, then he said to them, but who do you say that I am? And Peter answered, the Christ of God. And he strictly charged and commanded them to tell this to no one. So apparently all three writers got the hint that he didn't want to be called the Christ, period. I mean, those are strong statements. It's not like you can't sweep them under the rug. You can't say that, oh, but he was waiting until later at the right time. There's nothing in the text to say that. It's like that's all made up garbage. It's not there. It's just like the girl tonight when we watching her live. It's like, and she said that James and John it just wasn't the right time yet. The grace wasn't there. They weren't supposed to do the fire from heaven. No, he said they had the wrong spirit. They didn't know what kind of spirit they were from. He rebuked them. Rebuke, when you Greek, it's pretty strong. It means you just about have X'd off that person when you say you rebuked them. You're done. I mean, it's a pretty strong word. Then we have Matthew 24:5. Many will come in my name, saying, I am the Christ, and they will lead many astray. They're not going to say they are the Christ, but they're going to say that Jesus is the Christ. That is the deception. And I think that's why he said, be careful how you hear, because it's going to be twisted. When the ministers get up and talk about the warnings in Matthew 24, they're saying, oh, there's a bunch of little mini Christs coming, and they're going to claim to be the Christ. No, it was that other people were going to call him the Christ. And how do I know that for sure? Okay, the word they use for in, like in my name, in is epi in Greek. And epi is the same word you use in science class for your outer layer of your skin. Because epi means to layer something on top or to superimpose something on the top layer. It's like to lay it upon the top. So he's saying they're going to superimpose my name, saying I'm the Christ, and they're going to lead many astray. So it's just flat out. And I don't care how many times I tell people this stuff, this same things I'm telling y'all right now. When I'm in a live, people ignore me. They block me. They boot me. They call me Satan. And I'm just quoting Jesus. I'm just quoting what Jesus said he wanted and what he commanded and what he rebuked about and what he warned about. But they don't want to hear it. I have to ask myself why. Why do they not want to hear it? And it's like I ask myself, why would he strictly command them not to say that he was the Christ, rebuke those that call him the Christ, and then deny that he was the Christ to Pilate every time we have a text on that, and then if he didn't mean it? He went all the way to being unalived, denying that he was the Christ. But yet everybody in the whole world is calling him the Christ. And he said, the way is narrow and few find it. And most are led to destruction. Well, when you call him the Christ, you're calling him Yahweh's son, and Yahweh means destruction in Hebrew. They're going to tell you it means all kinds of things. The root word, Hebrew is a root word language, and the root word is hava, and hava means ruin or destroy. When you stick a yod in front of a root word, it means he will. He will destroy. So if you go to Abram Publishing, which is a Hebrew place that does word study online, they will show you that it means he will destroy as a verb or destruction as a noun. That's the only place I know online that's honest about what his name means. This, I believe, is why sometimes people can't hear it. It's like when he was talking to the Jews, he told them, he said, in John 8:44 through 47, he said, you're of the devil, you are of the devil as father, and the lust of your father you desire to do. That one was a murderer or an unaliver from the beginning, or Genesis, because that word for beginning in Greek is Genesis. He stood not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he spoke a lie, and because he was a liar and the father of it. I should have got a different version of this. This was supposed to be a literal, but this reads horrible. And because I speak the truth, you do not believe me. He was telling them, I'm speaking the truth. then when you get down to 47, he's saying, the one who is of God hears the words of God. For this reason you do not hear me, because you're not of God. So some of these people we're trying to talk to, they may not just be of God. They might not be of God. They may have no interest of being of God. It might be more of a social club to them to go to church. I don't know. For some reason, they can't hear him. And I don't know how many times you can talk to them for hours, and it's just like you talk to the wall. Then you have just total nonsense people that are out there pushing Wicca 101 as being Jesus's words. We've got just a big mix, and it makes me sad because you can go through TikTok and flip through the channels, and you can kind of see what's going on in the world because you've got a variety of people doing a variety of things. The channels that are drawing the big cards are the ones that are doing what they call reconstructing Christianity or deconstructing. They're tearing it apart. You've got your atheist channel, calling out anything that doesn't line up. And then, of course, they're picking up on the two Jesuses, but they don't know there's two Jesuses, so they're saying these are, that the text doesn't work because this says here, there, and it says that there. Then you can take your ones that want to follow the law, and you can pick a verse there and follow the law, or you can not follow the law and pick a verse here, but they're not seeing the complete picture. And maybe that's because they're not of God, and we can't get mad at them. We can show them, we can talk to them, we can try to, show them what we see, but a lot of times they're just not going to see it. It's like Jesus Bar Abba was the real Jesus. He came to save everyone, not just one nation. Then you have Jesus Christ, who's only there to save one group. And this is why they can argue. Because you can go to John 3:16, it says, For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believed in him should not perish but have everlasting life. That has been the central message, they say, for Christianity from the beginning. But yet, we've got this other message in Matthew 15:24, and so he answered, I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Well, which is it? Was he sent for the whole world, or was he sent for the lost sheep? This is why we got so many arguments, but they don't know there's two of them. The one that was sent for the world was sent from above. It's like, he was not born down here. He was not born of a virgin. He tells us 38 times he was sent. He's called a monogene. A monogene is a single gene. Mono means one, gene means gene. A monogene has no brothers and sisters. Okay, then you have Jesus Christ, who is called a firstborn. A firstborn has two parents. He has brothers and sisters and comes from a family type situation. It's like, so you've got two different Jesuses, but most people don't ever see it. And they don't dig deep enough to even know that there are different words being used in different places. It's like I was telling them last night, or the other night, it's like, Morning Star, it doesn't have the same Greek word twice, but it's 3 times, all 3 words are translated Morning Star. So it's just so much to take in when you start looking at this. Okay, so who was Jesus Christ? I believe it was James the Just. And why do I think this? Okay, Yahweh calls in his Old Testament, he always calls a person that he has his just one or his righteous one. And James is always called James the Just or James the Righteous. And Jesus told us, he said, I come in my Father's name, and you do not receive me. When another comes in his own name, you will receive him. Okay, well, Jacob means supplanter, and James is the English flip side. It's the same word as Jacob, only in English, and it means usurper. And Yahweh changes that name of Jacob, or James if you were speaking in English, to Israel. Okay? And then Israel is actually the one that is actually their Messiah. He's the just one or the righteous one that you find in like Isaiah, my servant, the just one. And Exodus 4:22. And shall you tell Pharaoh, Yahweh, Israel is my son, my firstborn. Just like he's called in the New Testament, the firstborn. These is the verses. I'm not going to read all of them, but I'm going to give you the verses so you can, if you want to have them, you can have them. This is where he talks to Pilate, and most of them say, "You have said so." In other words, when he asked him if he said, "Are you the Christ?" He said, "You have said so." "Are you the King of the Jews?" "You have said so." And he's basically given a denial. And the one place in Mark 14:61 where he asked him directly, "Are you the Christ?" we have in English, "I am." But that's not what we have in the Greek. They dropped the negating particle. What is actually in the Greek is it said, "I am not." He just gave a flat out, "No, I'm not." But the verses are Mark 14:61, 15 Mark 15:2, Luke 22:67, Luke 23:2, John 10:24 and 25, 26 and 27, and Matthew 26:63 and 64. And if you want to go through and read each one of those, and you'll notice if you're reading a more modern version of them, they are slowly and gradually changing it, like he really actually might have said he was. It's not real clear now, but if you go look at the Greek, you can tell real easy that he's denying it. That makes me irritated too, because people that are buying these new Bibles, like the Message Bible or NIV's not too bad, but some of them, I mean, if you get them, the voice, you're going to get such a distorted view, you're not even going to know what it said. Now, Paul, and now everybody knows I have issues with Paul, but Paul is in Thessalonians gives us some stuff about the end time. He said, this is 2 Thessalonians 2. I'm going to read 1 through 12. Now we beseech you, brethren, by the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ, and by our gatherings together unto him, that you be not soon shaken in mind or troubled, neither by spirit, nor by word, nor by letter, as to us as to the day of Christ is at hand. And then he says, let no man deceive you by any means, except there be a falling away first, that the man of sin to be revealed, the son of perdition, who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God, and that is worshipped, so that he, as God, sits in a temple of God, showing himself that he is God. Remember ye not that when I was yet with you, I told you these things, and now you know that withholds that he might be revealed in his time. For the mystery of iniquity doth already work. So this is already happening right then and there in the first century. It's already happening. And then he said, and then shall the wicked be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming, whose coming is after the working of Satan, with all the power and signs and lying wonders. Lying wonders? Think about verse 8 and 9, what he's really said. He's talking about the Lord coming and going to consume them with the spirit of his mouth and destroy them with the brightness of his coming, who's after the working of Satan. So he's given Satan credit for working with Yahweh is what he's doing. And all the deceivables of the unrighteous in them that perish, because they receive not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. And for this cause God shall send them a strong delusion, that they should believe a lie, and that they all might be damned who believe not the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness. That's a mouthful. So basically he's saying that Yahweh's going to send a strong delusion so that nobody does believe the truth. That's pretty sad. And it said the mystery of lawlessness is already working. It's like this was written in 51 AD. So everything was already in motion that early on. Now, bearing in mind what all Paul said there, we're going to look here at Matthew 16. And this is the chapter where you can literally see what Jesus is trying to warn about if we look at it real carefully. I'm going to start in verse 5. And when the disciples were come to the other side, they had forgotten to take bread. And Jesus said unto them, Take heed and beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. So he's warning them about the leaven, and leaven is what inflates things and changes the bread. And they reasoned among themselves, saying, It is because we have taken no bread. And when Jesus perceived, he said unto them, Ye of little faith, why reason among yourselves, because ye have brought no bread? Do you not yet understand? Neither remember the 5 loaves and the 5,000, and how many baskets ye took up? Neither the 7 loaves or the 4,000, and how many baskets you took up? How is it that you do not understand that I spoke not to you concerning bread, that you should be aware of the leaven of the Pharisees and the Sadducees? He wasn't talking about regular bread. He's talking about the Word. The bread of the Word. Then understood they how he had bade them not be aware of the leaven of the bread, but the doctrines of the Pharisees and the Sadducees, what they're writing, what they're saying. Not the actual bread he wasn't talking about. He was talking about how they're going to multiply the writing and stuff. And Jesus impressed the importance of being on guard against false teachings, especially that is in the service of a religious hypocrisy. He knew what they would do. They set up Peter as the head of the church and gave him the authority. We're going to see how they did that. And when Jesus had come to the coast of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, saying, Whom do they say I am? And they said, Some John the Baptist, some Elijah, some Jeremiah, or one of the prophets. And he said to them, But who do you say that I am? And Simon Peter answered, Thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. And Jesus answered him and said, Blessed art thou, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood hath not revealed it unto thee, but my Father which are in heaven. And I say unto thee that thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. And I will give unto thee the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatsoever thou shalt bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatsoever thou loosen on earth shall be loosened in heaven. Then he charged his disciples that they should tell no man that he was Jesus the Christ. Okay, does that make sense? When y'all read that, does that make sense? He asked them who he was. Peter answers that he was the Christ. Okay, then we have this big blessing, going to hand everything to Peter. And then right after that, we have a big rebuke. Something's wrong there, There's something massively wrong with that. Then when you look at this logically and you're looking at verse 13 through 20, something's wrong. And you know it immediately. If you read it in context, you're like, wait a minute now. Is he praising them or is he rebuking them? What is he doing? So when I look at this, I see a problem inserted right there. I see verse 17 through 19, there's a problem. So what I did was I took the Greek and went to the Codex Sinaiticus, and then I looked at the Latin, I looked at the Greek, and I analyzed the verses. And I got something totally different than what we have. So I think this is your Sadducees and your Pharisees changing the text in order to set Peter up to be the head honcho. Because when I did it, this is what I got on verse 17. And responding, Jesus said, Simon Bar-Jonah is wealthy and prosperous, but flesh and blood do not reveal race, but my Father, the one in heaven. He's saying, flesh and blood don't reveal who race is. Only Father knows that. Okay. Then the next verse I got, and I didn't tell him that he is Peter, and upon this rock I would build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. And the next verse is real telling, because it said, I put you in the kingdom hook of the vaulted sky, who, if you are seen above the earth, you are bound in the vaulted expanse of the skies, and that if you are seen, you are dissolved. If he tries to go above the skies, he will be dissolved, and you are destroyed in the vaulted expanse of the skies. And the way that read in Greek, it was kind of like, you know how we watch these space movies and people float off into space and their body explodes? It's kind of like that in Greek. It's like it was talking about how if he goes up too high from where he's supposed to be, that he's going to explode. I thought that was real interesting too. And then you have the statement he charged his disciples they should tell this no man that he was Jesus the Christ. So you have a rebuke and you have a reprimand instead of a praising and a reprimand. It's like it doesn't make sense. Now, if my translation is incorrect and theirs was not monkeyed with, then you could say this is the other Jesus. But if my translation is correct, then this is Barabbas telling them, reprimanding them and telling them that, no, you're stuck here now because of what you did. Then we go on down and we see even further evidence of this. It's like Matthew 16:21 through 28. From the time forth began Jesus to show his disciples how he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things of the elders and the chief priests and the scribes, and be unalived, and be raised again on the third day. And then Peter took him and began to rebuke him, saying, Be it far from thee, Lord, this shall not be done unto thee. It's like, so Peter's going to turn around and rebuke him. And he turned and said, Peter, get behind me, Satan, for thou art an offense unto me, for thou savorest not the things that would be of God, but the things that would be of man. Well, it's the only person he calls Satan. That's a big statement. Jesus said to his disciples, If any man will come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. For whosoever will save his life shall lose it, and whosoever will lose his life for my sake shall find it. For what is a man profit if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul? He said, For the Son of Man shall come in the glory of the Father with the angels, and then he shall reward every man according to his works. Verily I say unto you, there will be some standing here which shall not taste death until they see the Son of Man coming into his kingdom. Okay, for one thing, the Son of Man is not Jesus. I don't think it's Jesus Barabbas. I think it's Jesus Christ. Because he's talking about something happening before these people are unalived, and go and have finished their life. So something's fixing to come that's not him, before they're even unalive, before their life ends. And him calling him Satan and telling him, Get behind me. It's like, that was not a good statement. Now, what else gives me clues that Peter, if I go outside of this chapter, you can go look at Matthew 10:33. It says, But whosoever shall deny me before men, him I will also deny before the Father. Then you go to Matthew 26:69 through 75, and we have Peter denying him 3 times before men. Now Peter sat in the palace, which means Peter was a high priest. He wouldn't have been in the palace otherwise. And the damsel came unto him, saying, Thou also wast with Jesus of Galilee. And he denied it before them all, saying, I know not of what thou sayest. And when he had gone into the porch, another maid saw him, and said unto him, that this fellow was with Jesus of Nazareth. And he denied it with an oath. And Jesus said, don't swear any oaths. I do not know that man. And after a while, he came and stood by and said to Peter, surely thou art one of them, for thy speech betrayeth thee. Then he began to curse and to swear, saying, I don't know the man. And immediately the cock crew. Peter remembered the words of Jesus, and he said unto him, before the cock crows, thou shalt deny me 3 times. And he went out and wept bitterly. He went out and cried because he knew it was over at that point. He had already done what Jesus said that he would, once you deny him before men, he was going to deny him before the Father. So he knew he messed up. So what happened here? It's like Jesus didn't want to be called the Christ, but yet we have set up in the Catholic Church the Vicar of Christ. And the Vicar of Christ is a person acting as a priest. They're like taking the place of Christ, like to serve on earth. It's the same thing as Antichrist, actually, but that's going to be even more difficult to explain. But they called all the first people that came in to be the Vicar of Christ, and this started around 88 A.D. It was called the bishop who presides in the place of God, is what they named it first, but it was still named the vicar. And it can mean a deputy, a second in command, a substitute, a proxy, interchangeable, in a place of position. Now, when they say it, it says a vicar means a substitute for another, a substitute for Christ, another Christ, and in Greek, it would be the same word as Antichrist. And nobody ever tells people that. The Antichrist posed as a true representative of the Christ. It's like, I don't believe they posed. I believe this was set up, but this is the way they wanted it to be. And I'm going to show that in a minute. Anti and vicar are the same words in English. So therefore, Vicar of Christ or Vicarius Christi in Latin is the same as Antichrist in English. And they both mean vice or deputy. When you look them up and put them side by side, you can tell they're the exact same word. If we look at the word for vice president in Greek, it's antipedros. So your vice president has the anti prefix, just like Antichrist would be your vice Christ. It's like padre, antipadros in Greek is like the Father. So we got all these words that are anti that mean like. Antitheos can equate to the God or godlike. It can also mean opposed to, but it can mean godlike also. In many places it is translated as godlike, but it's still the word anti in front of the word God. Anti-theos. And the Pope's name is the Vicar of Christ, or the Vicarius Christi. And it's the same thing as when you look at anti, it can mean vice or deputy or like. It can also mean instead of, in return for, or on behalf of. So Antichrist can mean for Christ, Christ-like, or on behalf of Christ, or vice Christ, or deputy Christ. Now, I'm going to show you something that'll probably scare you if you've never seen this before. But the 666 in Revelation is the word Christ. And I'm going to show you how. Nomina Sacra it's a formula for of initials that they use in the Koine Greek to write in sacred names like Lord, Lord God, Jesus, Jesus Christ, Christ. Several of them, they use a Nomina Sacra, and There is no other names in there except for one place in Mark has Jesus' name written out. Other than that, all you've got is initials throughout the entire manuscripts now. So I'm going to show you what this looks like. This is a Koine Greek. See that? Looks like an XIC, has a straight bar over the top. When you see a straight bar over letters in Koine Greek, you know you're looking at a name. It's like right away you know, because that line on the top, you know it's a name. Okay, when we look at the 6, that's the 616, and it does come out to be Christos when you look at the initials. The X is a C, is CH, the I is an I, and the one that looks like a C, that's the S on the end. They use 3 initials for a Christogram. One at the beginning, one at the end, and one of the initials in the middle. So both your 616 and your 666 are both the same word, which blows people's minds when you tell them that. Because everybody's like, oh, it's got to be this one or it's got to be that one. No, they're both the same thing. That's your overscore bar written out on a later manuscript. That's not a Koine, but that's a later manuscript. They still put the bar over the top because it was there for the 666. I guess they thought it was important. Christos does equal 666 in Gematria. And like I said in Matthew 24:5, he said, many will come in my name. Are they going to superimpose my name, saying I'm the Christ, and they're going to lead many astray? And in both the manuscripts, you're going to see that it's the name Christos. Here's another picture that's a little bit bigger. Maybe you can see that. See the bars over the top? You know when you see that it's a name. And here we have it. When you look at the Greek, Christos is a proper noun, a male given name. It's also a name. It's not only just a title, it's a name also. So it can be either or. Because John tells us it's the name of a man. I don't know if you can see that penciled in card I put there at the top where it says neuro. The biggest propaganda out right now is that the Antichrist was actually Nero. It couldn't have been. Because look at the initials. You'd had to have the N, Omega, Sigma for it to be Nero. And you don't have that. But you do have Christos. It doesn't spell the right name for it to be Nero. And they're pushing that hard. Now here's another place I found some stuff that kind of backs this up, okay? This is the Latin version of 1 John 2:1. And it reads, my little children, these things I write to you that you may not sin. But if any man does sin, we have an advocate, the Father, Jesus Christ the just, is what it says. That word for father is the word in Latin that they use for a priest for father, not the word for father. So he's talking about going to a priest, and he's talking about going to Jesus Christ the just, which I told you I think it's James the just. Here's another example of how they're messing things up. John 1:17. We have, for the law was given through Moses, and grace and truth came through Jesus Christ, is what we have in our English version. The word Christ is not in the manuscripts. It was added. And I saw that many times they're added in between the line, they're added at the end of the line. They were setting this up to look this way. They were adding the word Christ in there so that people would start using Christ more. Here's John 1:22. And this is a big one. It's like, when we read it, we say, who is the falsifier if not the contradictor? That because Jesus is the Christ, is the Antichrist, the contradictor of the Father, of the Son. And that's a very literal translation. But they dropped the word not. In between the word Jesus and Christ is the word not. It should read, who is the liar if not the one that says that Jesus is not the Christ? He is the Antichrist, the contradictor of the Father and the Son. So they were literally changed it from Jesus is the Christ is what they put down, and it should have read Jesus is not the Christ. And I checked. There's not a manuscript I found that did not have that not in there. In the Latin, all of them that I could find had the word not. I checked, I guess, about 28 versions of this verse, and it's in every one of them. So why was it not translated? It has to be an agenda. So who did all this? It was Peter and Paul. They even set up the mark. The mark of the beast is actually in Galatians 6:17, and most people don't even know it. Paul says, "From now on, let no man trouble me, for I bear the mark of Jesus." When you look at that word in Greek for trouble, is kapos, and kapos means work or exertion. In work or exertion, and then the other word they used, perchio, means for profit or to make money. So he's basically saying, don't let anybody bother me in buying and selling, because I have the mark. What does this mean for us right now? I think that mark is still going out there. And I think that mark goes out there through the Catholic Church. Unfortunately, I used to be Catholic, so I'm not bashing Catholics just because they're Catholic. And I don't think it's an unforgivable sin. It's like if it's an unforgivable sin, you got more than one. And we're told in the Gospels that there's only one unforgivable sin, and that is the blasphemy of the Holy Spirit. Well, then is getting the mark an unforgivable sin? How many unforgivable sins are there? What if you don't forgive your neighbor? Then you won't be forgiven. That's an unforgivable sin then. I think that they've played loose with that. And there's all these writings. Here's the one by Pope Martin V. It said that no contract should be made with such that they should not follow any business or merchandise save he had the mark and took the oath to the true Pope. So nobody could buy or sell anything under that Pope, Martin V, unless they had the mark from the Catholic Church. Senators in France was under the same Pope orders, under the like determination that no man should presume to receive or assist them, not so much as they hold any communion with them in selling or buying, and they be deprived in any way and compelled to repent of their error. So they were doing the same thing. And then Clark's commentary, this is from Bishop Newton, stated that the authorized Christians are condemned or excommunicated as heretics. In the consequences, they could no longer buy or sell, and are indicted from traffic and commerce and the benefits of social society. So they could no longer sell if they fell out of the good graces of the Catholic Church. And they set up this dragon's tail, which is in Revelation 9:19, for their powers in the mouth and in their tails. For their tails are like the serpents, and had heads, and they do hurt. Well, the tail in Greek means a succession of persons. They set up these antichrists or vicarious Christies or popes or whatever you want to call them in a succession of persons. And this has been ongoing for 2,000 years. And there they are. You can't sell them little pictures, but that's all the tales that have come through. And I think we're on the last one, to be honest. I don't know if y'all have looked at Peter the Roman, Malachi's prophecy. Malachi's prophecy of the Pope said there was only going to be so many popes. This Pope is Jesuit priest, and he said some off-the-wall things. Like he said, one comment was humanly speaking. I said, who says that word, humanly speaking? He said Christ was, that going to the cross, Christ was a failure. He just said some odd things. And here's another quote from St. Ambrose of Milan, letting you know what they really worship. It says, where there is Peter, there is a church, and where there is a church, there is life eternal. They put all their ducks in a row with Peter. When you go into St. Peter's Cathedral, you're going to see Peter's altar. You're going to see Peter's bones underneath. You're going to see his statue. You're going to see his chair up front. The building is named after him. There is nothing about Jesus in there. And I think what they did, and I keep trying to prove it, but I think that Paul and Peter set up James the Just as the Christ. Because in Acts 19, it says that there were certain Jewish exorcists, and they were calling people crazy that were worshiping the Lord Jesus, and they were making them denounce that Jesus and swear an oath to the Jesus that Paul taught. Well, if you look at the distribution of the word Christ in the New Testament, you will see that only Peter and Paul and them taught the Christ one, and then you have Jesus' words in the red letter text actually saying, don't ever call me that. Rebuking people. Like I said, you can clearly see the two sides once you look at it. And if you're worried about whether the word Christ was in a verse or not, you can always go to the Codex Sinaiticus online and look up that verse and see if it's in that manuscript, because that's one of the oldest ones. And they have the whole thing on photocopy. You just go and click on the verse you want, the book and the verse, and then it'll take you to it on the manuscript itself and put a little red box around it so you can see it. And then on the right, it'll tell you whether a word was omitted or not. So if Christ was omitted in that area, it'll say that word was omitted. It'll tell you. So you don't even have to be great at finding the word on the manuscript. The little program does it for you. It's been a godsend for me, because if you've ever tried to read Koine Greek, it's very hard because there's no breaks between the words, and there's no punctuation. It's like doing a find a word search thing. You have to go in and find each word, and then you can read the sentence. It's very difficult. But you can always go check and see if that nomosekum is there for that word Christ or not. And if you don't see it in the Koine Greek, then it shouldn't have been in the English text. And you can go to Bible Hub and pull up a whole bunch of the Greek, like on a verse, and see like that where I said that word not is in 2 John 2:22. You can pull up like a whole row of them, and you can see whether the word not was in every one of them or was it in half of them, because not all manuscripts are the same. That's a lot, I know, I covered tonight. But I wanted y'all to, I just think this is so important. I don't know what it's going to mean to, to salvation, but he does say, not everybody that says to me, Lord, Lord, is going to enter the kingdom of heaven. I might tell him I don't know. Lord, Lord is Yahweh, Yahweh. So why is calling him Yahweh, Yahweh going to keep you out of heaven, So it may be a lot more important than we think, but to me it was very important. It's like if